Issue 191. We start out right away with Metal Sonic showing up at the Freedom HQ and Miles telling Scourge about it, looking too apathetic and moody to be surprised, alarmed, and intimidated in any way by seeing a killer robot all of a sudden. I'm surprised Metal Sonic showed up this fast. Normally the comic builds up suspense by having us be told about Eggman's plan ahead of time. Scourge says, "Thank you, Miles." Well, isn't this cute? A robot Sonic. That was really nice for him to thank Miles, and so nonchalantly at that, as if he does it all the time. Before this, it was looking like he just ruled the subordinates through intimidation, but here he actually bothers to thank Miles for something as minor as doing something he was expected to do, telling him he was out the door. And then when I guess he hears Eggman's voice through it, he says, "Ah, Doc Eggman, that makes sense." So his previous line was probably from him wondering if it was made by the Freedom Fighters and sent to him. I'm liking his dialogue here, it's so entertainingly casual. And I like how, by sheer coincidence, by sheer being similar to Sonic, he calls him Eggman too. As Miles continues to look bored, Scourge explains his identity in the situation, and then he immediately shows his naivety and inexperience about Eggman again, as when Eggman says this changes his plans for today, he casually says, "Honest mistake, I'll let you know when I'm ready to conquer your parts of the planet." Like he honestly didn't get the idea that Eggman would go after him for that. Eggman says, then again, why pass up one uppity hedgehog for another? Which is a great menacing line from him, as Scourge looks angry right away instead of intimidated and surprised like I'd expect. Then the Council of Acorn makes their second mistake, making them not at all endearing to me. First they dragged out the heroes going to fight Interjack just to make the same exact plan Sally probably would've, which might have been responsible for everything Knuckles-Jack did, and now they're refusing to let the heroes fight for their base back. Granted, they lost horribly the first time, so this is only irritating on an emotional level of, it's the principle that matter. But there's no reason the heroes could just build some invention thanks to Rotor and Tails to oust their evil twins, like a projectile taser debilitating them all. Instead, Rosemary, who looks so much like Alicia that I did a double take, really proving that they shouldn't have changed her design to brown fur and made her unrecognizable, insists that Scourge won't conquer this world so easily, because our world is different. Idiot. And why did they even bother correcting her on the new name of his world? Anti-Mobius is better. It's actually pronounced differently, and it has more letters that are different from Anti-Mobius as opposed to just a one-letter difference. What's with her being so arrogant that this world won't fall to him? Literally all Scourge has to do is approach Eggman in person and snap his neck at the speed of sound, and boom! He's taken over his empire! Then Hamlin, why is he on this freaking council? Reasons that considering the gains they've made in Eggman City, they should focus their attacks on him. They can get Freedom HQ back anytime. That would make sense if and only if the Freedom Fighters have a lab other than the one Freedom HQ. And it's a whole city, so I'm sure they could find another place for the lab and building materials somewhere else. But if they can't find another lab, they won't be able to take the base back anyways. Not to mention there's plenty of Freedom Fighters, not to mention the Chaotix, so why can't some of them go to fight the evil twins while the rest of them attack Eggman City? At the very least, Uncle Chuck and Rotor are on Sonic's side, especially Rotor, but they're outvoted because that's how democracy works. Sonic arrogantly insists to Knuckles that they can take back the base themselves, even though they lost last time, will obviously need an edge over them to win. And Knuckles admits that they may have a point, but doesn't proceed to explain why he thinks that, and therefore it looks like he's in the wrong to Sonic. Instead, Knuckles' angst is about being brainwashed again, saying that he did do what he thought was right, and now his dad is gone. Okay, it makes sense that he'd be upset, and I hate when people just call it wangsting and say heartlessly the characters need to just get over it, because they're not thinking about how they feel in their situation. You can't just get over it most of the time. But even I am finding this constant whining from him tedious. Knuckles sheds tears as the camera angle is annoyingly tilted and tells him to do whatever he wants. Then a few panels are wasted on Sonic pointlessly recapping stuff to us in his thoughts, which makes the dialogue from him look stilted since he already knows about all this stuff. There's no reason he'd think this in universe. He thinks that you'd think we were coming out ahead. Not really, all the villains from the prison escaped. He runs to the base alone, making me kind of admire him rebelling against the council so easily like an independent free spirit, and then sees Metal Sonic fighting Scourge. The two have the same speed, I guess it makes sense that Scourge would have trouble, especially if his attempts to spin dash through a relatively small target like that are always dodged. Miles says with a satisfied smirk, calling him sire, that he's not sure what he should do and saying to forgive him. He then explains that Scourge conquered the world on his own, and asks if that would be unforgivably insulting if he got his whole team to help him against just one robot. He's just making an excuse not to help, but when you think about it, it's not just a spite thing. He can't help him even if he wanted to. He'd just get himself killed. And even if he called this gang out here, he'd just be putting all of their lives at risk for just one person. So there might be some more motives to him than meets the eye. He doesn't want to embarrass himself by admitting he's too weak to help, and doesn't want to risk his other friends getting hurt. Now Scourge is, from what I've read from other sources, getting held by the neck, but it's really hard to tell from these camera angles. Scourge somehow manages to talk anyways and threatens him in his position. To the surprise of both evil twins, Sonic saves Scourge with a spin dash and asks him for another temporary truce. But Scourge defensively says he doesn't want his pity, obviously pretty embarrassed at having to be rescued by Sonic, and says brashly that he can take both of them. Then Julie sits with the moping Knuckles and tells him that everyone's gathering for a technical meeting, and when Knuckles tells her where Sonic went, she isn't happy because he's acting independently. Then Knuckles says that he makes too many mistakes on his own and he should just follow everyone else instead, making a pretty smart decision for a supposed idiot. Then Julie, for some reason, says he did that too, you know. He did that for the freedom fighters, yes, but she's talking as if something horrible happened because of it. Then Knuckles snaps, complaining about how he doesn't know what to do, ranting, I listened to my dad and I'm alone forever. I listened to everyone else and I let Angel Island get torn apart. I listened to myself and I make everything worse. Is Julie gonna get all offended and mopey just because he was stressed out over the situation and happened to raise his voice? He then complains he doesn't know what to do after everything that happened to him. Then the old sassy Julie Sue I knew and loved comes back as instead of being comforting, she yells at him, grabbing him. Don't you dare think this affects only you! They were my people, my home, and my family too! Then she explains that it's not all Knuckles' fault, and shouting that all the time isn't dealing with the matter. Somehow she comes to the conclusion that it's running away from it instead. He then says that she's not helping anything and uses a warp ring to go back to his island, causing Julie to cry despite her arms crossed in its typical Sideri manner, saying, Blast it, Knuckles, I didn't mean to fight with you! Meh. Scourge says to Sonic, you're just whining because I'm kicking your ass, or at least he would have said the final word, if Metal Sonic didn't attack him and cut him off. Sonic attacks Metal Sonic again, and Eggman says that he's putting the finishing touches on Metal's reinforcements. Then Sonic, dodging Scourge's ungrateful looking punch by just moving his head, finally points out, you know, when I said it wouldn't take much for you to find your full potential, I meant that morally. You're me for pity's sake. It's kind of weird him saying pity instead of what's usually said in that phrase. But I guess no other phrase would have created the right emphasis. Scourge insists, not anymore, deluding himself, and Sonic points out, you could be a hero! And Scourge asks what heroism gets you, even though he knew from impersonating Sonic that it gets him praised. And he loved praise. He really enjoyed getting that free chili dog from the person he rescued. Still, he's somehow convinced that it gets him nothing that he'd want, even though he barely has any experience with being a hero to, jade him into thinking this, and exclaims while punching him, I'm king of a whole planet! I got that my way, not yours! I love that second line of his. It's a perfect representation of his rebellious spirit that really defines him as a character. He bases his life around rebelling against Sonic. I wonder if Sonic was a villain, he'd be a hero just to keep being different from him. Scourge says that while people smile and wave at Sonic, everyone bows to him, and then he offers Sonic a chance to conquer the multiverse with him, ruling it as two unstoppable kings. What about Fiona? Wouldn't she come between them or something? Be awkward about Sonic being there? It's interesting that Scourge even offered this to someone he supposedly hates so much at all. You'd think he'd be disgusted at the idea of working with Sonic, being pals with him, even as villains. Let's compare egos for a second, shall we? Scourge likes himself so much that he'd even offer an alternate him to rule the multiverse with him as best friends. Miles likes himself so much that when faced with an alternate him, he says, you make me sick! While Scourge isn't 100% delusionally arrogant, since he's shown himself to say not try to fight Sonic and his friends by himself last issue when they're leaving the base, you could make the argument that there's something to be said about the fact that Scourge would like to be partners with himself, while Miles hates himself. Metal Sonic spin dashes Scourge before a shocked Sonic could say anything, and then we cut to Archimedes telling Knuckles on top of the Master Emerald that Julie's just worried about him. Charmy then gives him some surprisingly wise advice for a little kid, saying that when he gets angry, he just gets distracted, so he tells himself there will always be more flowers, meaning good things will happen to him later on anyways. With Knuckles worried in a fetal position, he realizes that Charmy was right, and warps back to Julie, who still is mad at him for some reason. Surprisingly, despite looking annoyed with each other, Knuckles says calmly, "I messed up right now. Can I say I'm sorry now and work on it later?" And Julie says equally reasonably, "Sure, I'm sorry for yelling." That's good. It wouldn't be endearing to me the two making a whole drama about an argument like that. This is bad enough. Knuckles was stressed out, and she should know that. Knuckles for some reason insists that Sonic's got things under control all by himself, even though he's just one person and his whole team got booted out of the base. And the story ends with a kind of ridiculous looking metal skirt showing up. In the next story, Tails asks Knuckles if he's sure about something, and Knuckles says this is the only Chaos Emerald left, so the thieves have to come here to get it, and they'll be ready when they do. Wait, only emerald left? But it's not gray! The only emerald left in the world that's not in the special zone is the gray one that saved Tails' parents. This makes no sense. Then some people who remind me of the Dark Legion clone from Sonic Chronicles get trapped in a trap, and Tails says amusingly still smiling that it almost makes sacrificing the tornado for parts worth it. Please tell me we get the Tornado 2 back after this. I love that design, we barely got to see it. Predictably, the villain somehow managed to get away despite being in a trap, and Shade knocks Knuckles out and gets him kidnapped instead of killed because the villains insist that they aren't that ruthless. I'm guessing the story's worthlessly non-canon because it just ends here with the text box saying you have to play Sonic Chronicles to find out what happened after this, and I can't imagine something as significant as Knuckles getting kidnapped by these new villains would go without consequences in the comic. Not to mention the fact that the Chaos Emerald being green instead of gray is a big enough plot hole to make this whole story impossible. And I guess that's my summary right there. Plus the sheer fact that Knuckles' most powerful guardian alive would lose the fight just angers me. As for the main story, well, the whole issue was by Ian Flynn first off, and I get why the Council of Acorns made their decision, since the whole team was kicked out of the base so easily. They need time to prepare first to get the base back later. But how will they do that if they don't have a lab outside of the base to make inventions to fight back with? It wouldn't take long to do that. And what's the problem with fighting back right away? Why can't they do both? Mainly the Council is just irritating me on an emotional level. It's a principle of the matter. Let them take their base back. I'll only really be annoyed if they have the gall to try to punish Sonic or whatever for acting independently, God forbid. When the fact that he got into the fight he did, outnumbered by Metal Sonic and unwilling to cooperate Scourge, is punishment enough. Scourge is just too embarrassed with the fact that he needed help by the Prime Sonic, implying that Sonic really is his superior, and that makes him try to save face by not making a truce with him, even if it means making the fight way harder for himself. He goes with emotions over logic, just like Sonic does. Miles on a surface level, meanwhile, looks like he was just making an excuse not to help him from mere spite, but again, he couldn't help him anyways, and calling out his friends to join the fight for him would needlessly put their lives at risk. Why wouldn't he show more loyalty to a larger group of people than to just one person, who terrifies his friends at that? It's not as evil as it looks, honestly, and Scourge offering to rule the universe with Sonic at all is pretty surprising for someone who hates him so much for taunting him. You'd think he'd refuse to work with him on sheer principle. It just shows how much he likes himself that he'd want to work with Sonic in general. Like he can still find things to like and respect in him rather than just wanting to kill him and that's it.